The sun beat down on the rugged terrain as Giovanni Martini galloped across the uneven ground, clutching the note from Adjutant Cook in his hand. The urgency of his mission echoed in his mind. Be quick. Bring packs. Custer needed reinforcements, and Martini was the chosen messenger to deliver that critical message to Captain Benteen. He had barely started his journey back when the first crack of gunfire pierced the air, signaling a shift in the battle's intensity. Though Martini remained focused, the danger was real and immediate. Somewhere between 3411 and Reno Hill, his horse lurched beneath him, jerking as if stung by a sudden sharp pain. It was only after a few minutes of riding that Martini noticed the blood trickling down the animal's flank. His horse had been wounded by Indian fire. The wound wasn't immediately life-threatening, but it slowed the horse's pace considerably. The normally swift and agile animal now struggled with every step. Each movement labored. Martini urged it forward, fully aware of the stakes. The delay, though small, could have far-reaching consequences. He was carrying a message that could shift the tide of battle, Custer's survival. The fate of his command, and perhaps the outcome of the day, rested on this delivery. Martini pressed on, determined. The air around him was filled with tension. In the distance, he could hear the rumble of distant gunfire and the faint cries of men engaged in battle. He knew the path ahead was treacherous, but there was no turning back now. The weight of his mission was palpable, and time was against him. As the minutes ticked by, Martini's progress slowed even further. His horse, though valiantly pressing on, was visibly weakening, each step becoming more of a burden. For Martini, it was not just a battle of speed, but one of endurance. He clung to his training, recalling the importance of keeping a level head in the face of danger. His mission was clear: deliver the note to Benteen and ensure that reinforcements arrived swiftly. Anything less could mean disaster. The gunfire that had struck Martini's horse hinted at the growing presence of Native American warriors in the area, a fact that hadn't fully sunk in for Custer's command yet. This was no longer a small skirmish. It was becoming a full-scale battle, and the wounded horse was a testament to the hostiles' growing strength. Martini, though unaware of the broader strategic implications at the moment, was living through a pivotal moment that would later haunt historians and battle scholars alike. For the next few minutes, as the sun bore down and the sound of war raged in the background, Martini pushed his horse as far as it would go, knowing full well that the odds were stacked against him. His mission was clear, and though his horse was hurt, he remained steadfast. The final stretch lay ahead, and though his pace had slowed, Martini remained unwavering in his determination. This message would be delivered no matter the cost. The slight wound to his horse, though a hindrance, was not enough to stop him. But the battle and the implications of this wound were just beginning to reveal themselves. As Martini's wounded horse pressed onward, carrying with it the weight of both time and survival, it became clear just how vital his role as a messenger was. In the tumult of battle, the distance between commanders and their troops was more than physical. It was a divide of understanding, of awareness, and ultimately of strategy. Bridging that divide fell to the messengers, men who were trusted not only with the words of their leaders, but with the responsibility of ensuring those words reached their destination in time to matter. At the Battle of Little Bighorn, communication was everything. Custer's men were scattered, and their survival depended on the ability to coordinate across rugged terrain, under constant threat from the surrounding Native American warriors. With no radios, no telegraphs, and no reliable form of long-distance communication, the burden of keeping the army connected rested on the backs of men like Martini and on the horses they rode. But being a messenger in this battle was no easy task. The landscape was unforgiving, a mix of rolling hills, steep ridges, and dry, broken terrain that could wear down even the best-conditioned horses. Worse still, the messengers often had to pass through areas already teeming with danger. The battle was not confined to one neat line of engagement. It was fluid, with Native American forces moving swiftly and unpredictably. Every ride, every message came with the risk of ambush or capture, and the consequences of failure were not just personal. They could mean disaster for entire units. Yet the messengers were not just men on horseback. They were conduits of power, of decisions made far from the heat of combat, but with the potential to alter its outcome dramatically. Each rider carried with him not just words, but the hopes, the strategies, and the survival of his fellow soldiers. Martini's journey was marked by urgency, the need to deliver Cook's written note before it was too late. And yet, despite the gunfire and his wounded horse, Martini's resolve was unshakable. But while Martini's journey would go down in history as a symbol of the struggle to stay connected amid chaos, another messenger at Little Bighorn would not be remembered so kindly. Sergeant Daniel Kanipe, though entrusted with a similar role, would become the subject of doubt and suspicion. His actions, compared to Martini's determined push forward, seemed slow and questionable. Why, many would ask, did Kanipe not show the same resolve? The difference between these two men, their speed, their determination, their reliability, would become a defining aspect of how the battle was remembered. For every battle, there are those whose stories are celebrated and those whose actions are questioned. In Kanipe's case, history would cast a long shadow of uncertainty over his role, especially as the details of his mission became muddled and his intent scrutinized. In battles like Little Bighorn, messengers were more than mere couriers. They were the vital link that held fractured lines together, ensuring that commanders could execute their plans. But even in the best of circumstances, these messengers faced enormous challenges. Communication breakdowns in the heat of battle were inevitable, and misunderstandings or delays could prove fatal. The difference between success and failure was often measured in minutes, sometimes even seconds, and it was in these moments that a messenger's true character was revealed. Martini, despite the dangers, pressed on with singular focus. His horse was injured, but he did not waver. He knew the importance of his message and acted accordingly, ensuring that Cook's urgent note to Benteen made it through enemy fire and the rough terrain. For Kanipe, however, the outcome was less clear-cut. His journey, marked by delays and confusion, left much to be desired. His message, if delivered at all, did not have the same decisive impact as Martini's. As we move deeper into the events surrounding Kanipe's story, the weight of the questions surrounding him becomes heavier. While Martini's courage and determination in the face of adversity are easy to admire, Kanipe's actions present a far more complex narrative. What truly happened on his journey? Why was his progress so slow? And why, unlike Martini, did he not seem to grasp the urgency of his mission? These questions linger, casting doubt on Kanipe's role and raising broader issues about the nature of duty in battle. Was he truly trying to fulfill his mission, or were there other factors at play? Did he lose his nerve, or was there a deeper, more insidious reason behind his apparent reluctance? To understand Kanipe's actions fully, we must first go back to the moment he claimed to have received his orders. While Martini's path was straightforward, Kanipe's would be anything but, as uncertainty and controversy surrounded his every step. But while Martini's mission was clear, swift, and unquestionably driven by urgency, Sergeant Daniel Kanipe's journey was steeped in ambiguity from the very start. Unlike the clear-cut orders Martini received, Kanipe's claim about his orders would later spark doubt and controversy, with many wondering if he ever truly intended to fulfill his mission, or if there was something more to his story. To unravel the mystery of Kanipe's actions, we must turn back the clock to the moment he claimed to have received his orders. It was 1:47 p.m. when Kanipe, a junior sergeant of Custer's force, asserted that he was instructed by Tom Custer to return and expedite the arrival of the pack train. The pack train, vital to the resupply and reinforcement of Custer's main body, was lagging behind the swiftly advancing troops. At this moment, the battle was still in its early stages. The dust from Reno's command skirmishing with the native forces had begun to rise, but few shots had been exchanged, and the gravity of what lay ahead was not yet clear to the soldiers. Kanipe's mission was simple, at least according to his account: deliver a verbal message to Captain McDougal, who commanded the rear guard, urging him to speed the packs along. On the surface, the order seemed reasonable. After all, with the troops advancing quickly, ensuring the pack train could keep pace was of paramount importance. But as historians would later analyze Kanipe's story, several inconsistencies began to emerge. The first source of doubt lay in the timing. If Kanipe had been sent back at 1:47 p.m., as he claimed, and his journey was direct, he should have been able to reach McDougal in a relatively short amount of time. But Kanipe didn't appear until much later, by which time Martini had already covered more distance with a wounded horse. This raised an uncomfortable question. Why was Kanipe's pace so slow? Some have suggested that Kanipe's delay could have been due to his horse breaking down, a common occurrence on the harsh, dusty trails. But no such explanation was offered by Kanipe himself, and others who traveled similar paths at the same time faced no such issues. Even more puzzling was that when Kanipe eventually arrived at his destination, neither McDougal nor Lieutenant Matthey, who oversaw the pack train, reported receiving any message from him. By all accounts, Kanipe appeared out of nowhere, blending into the chaos on Reno Hill without delivering the message he had been entrusted with. This gap in the story, the time it took Kanipe to ride back and the failure to convey his orders, led to suspicions that he may not have intended to carry out his mission at all. Some believe that Kanipe, realizing the gravity of the battle unfolding ahead, chose to take the opportunity to retreat to a safer position. With the rear guard stationed far from the heart of the conflict, it was possible that Kanipe saw his task as a chance to avoid the fighting entirely. Adding to the doubt was the fact that Kanipe never specified who had given him his orders until long after the battle had ended. It wasn't until the tally of the dead was taken and Tom Custer's fate confirmed that Kanipe stated Tom had been the one to send him back. This posthumous attribution only fueled the speculation. Why had Kanipe not mentioned Tom Custer earlier? And why, if the message was so urgent, had he not conveyed it immediately upon arriving at the rear? Another factor complicating Kanipe's story was the precedent set by other messengers. Before Kanipe's supposed mission, Chief Trumpeter Voss and Sergeant Major Sharrow had been instructed to return to the command, yet they followed their orders and made it back. Similarly, Trumpeter Martini was given orders with an important caveat. He was only to return if he could. Kanipe, on the other hand, never mentioned receiving such a condition, making it all the more perplexing that he failed to deliver his message. Was Kanipe's failure to convey his orders an honest mistake, the result of unforeseen complications, or was it something more deliberate? The timeline of events suggests that Kanipe could have malingered, either intentionally slowing his pace or avoiding his duty entirely. For some, the idea that Kanipe chose to retreat rather than advance toward danger was not far-fetched. After all, other soldiers had fallen behind as well. But while those men were rookies, inexperienced in the ways of battle, Kanipe was a seasoned soldier, well regarded by his peers. His decision to marry the widow of his first sergeant less than a year after the battle had further cemented his place in military circles, but it also cast a shadow over his motivations. The gap between the time Kanipe supposedly received his orders and the moment he reappeared on the battlefield stands out as one of the most debated points in his story. If Kanipe had left the command at 1:47 p.m., he should have reached Benteen by around 2:39 p.m. Instead, the timeline suggests he was moving at a speed far slower than expected, just 3 miles per hour, slower than even a leisurely walk by cavalry standards. For a man tasked with an urgent mission, this lack of urgency raised eyebrows. Kanipe's defenders have often pointed out that he could not have known Custer's entire command would be wiped out. To them, it made sense that Kanipe might have taken his time, especially if he believed the battle was progressing as planned. But the reality of Custer's defeat only deepened the mystery surrounding Kanipe's actions. His claim that Tom Custer had sent him back conveniently surfaced after the fact, when Tom was no longer alive to confirm or deny it. As the battle raged on and the dust of history began to settle, Kanipe's role would be forever clouded by doubt. Unlike Martini, whose determination and speed were etched into the annals of history, Kanipe's slow pace and questionable motives would leave a lingering question: what really happened when Sergeant Daniel Kanipe was sent back that fateful day? While Kanipe's actions remained shrouded in uncertainty, Martini's role as a messenger was far more straightforward. His mission was clear, and despite the danger, he acted with the speed and determination that history would remember. While the mystery surrounding Kanipe's actions created a swirl of doubt and speculation, the contrast could not have been more stark when compared to trumpeter Giovanni Martini. Where Kanipe's journey was clouded with questions of intent and speed, Martini's role as a messenger was defined by urgency and determination. His mission, delivering Adjutant Cook's written message to Captain Benteen, would become one of the most pivotal moments in the Battle of Little Bighorn. Martini's task began shortly after Custer surveyed the situation from atop Cedar Coulee. From that vantage point, Custer could see the unfolding skirmish between Major Reno's forces and the advancing native warriors. Despite the increasing intensity of the engagement, Custer, Cook, and the other officers seemed confident that Reno was holding his own. However, as the dust rose from the battlefield and more Native American warriors streamed toward the fray, the gravity of the situation became apparent. Custer knew reinforcements would be needed, and soon. At approximately 2:02 p.m., Custer gave Cook the order to dispatch a message to Benteen, who had been tasked with scouting to the south. Cook, understanding the seriousness of the situation, quickly penned a brief but urgent note. "Benteen, come on. Big village. Be quick. Bring packs. W.W. Cook. P.S. Bring packs." The wording of the note has since driven historians to debate its exact meaning, but at that moment there was no time for nuance. The message was clear. Benteen needed to bring the pack train and reinforce Custer's position as soon as possible. In the chaos of battle, those few words carried the weight of Custer's strategy and the fate of his troops. Martini, a young Italian immigrant with limited English, was chosen to deliver this crucial message. His selection might have seemed curious to some, but Martini had already proven his reliability in previous skirmishes. Moreover, Cook's decision to write the note eliminated the risk of any verbal miscommunication. The message was straightforward, and Martini's task was simple: ride as fast as possible and ensure that Benteen received the note. Martini began his ride back along the trail that Custer's command had taken earlier. As he retraced their steps, the sound of battle faded slightly behind him, but the urgency of his mission only intensified. He knew that time was of the essence. Every second that passed was one less moment for Benteen to organize his forces and push forward to support Custer. As Martini rode, he encountered a familiar face along the way: Boston Custer, George Custer's younger brother, who had fallen behind after stopping to change horses. Martini, despite the weight of his mission, briefly exchanged words with Boston. The two men spoke only for a moment, but even that brief interaction caused a slight delay in Martini's overall pace. Boston, too, was trying to catch up to his brothers, unaware of the tragic fate that awaited them all at Last Stand Hill. Despite the brief pause, Martini pressed onward, his focus never wavering. He knew what was at stake and what failure could mean. As he made his way back toward Benteen, Martini's path took him into dangerous territory. Though Custer's command was still advancing, Native American warriors were already moving into positions on the eastern bluffs. Overlooking the trail Martini had to traverse, these warriors, out of sight to Custer's command, posed a silent but deadly threat to Martini as he rode. At approximately 2:06 p.m., Martini's horse was struck by gunfire from one of these hidden warriors. The bullet hit the animal's rump, an injury that at first seemed insignificant but would ultimately slow Martini's progress. He continued riding, unaware that his horse had been wounded, but as the minutes passed, the effects became clear. The horse, though still moving, began to lose speed. What had once been a swift and urgent ride now became a slow, arduous trek back toward Benteen's position. Despite the injury to his horse, Martini pressed on, determined to fulfill his mission. His journey through the rough terrain, under the threat of enemy fire, was a testament to his resilience. Every moment he spent on the trail carried with it the potential for danger. But Martini never hesitated. His focus was singular: deliver the message and ensure that Benteen's reinforcements arrived in time. By 2:19 p.m., Martini had covered approximately 2.7 miles of the journey. The slowed pace was notable, but given the circumstances, Martini's speed was still impressive. For comparison, it was significantly faster than Kanipe's journey, despite the added challenge of a wounded horse and constant threat from nearby Native American forces. Martini's perseverance paid off when at 2:41 p.m., he finally reached Benteen's command. The message, scrawled on a piece of paper by Cook just minutes earlier, was now in Benteen's hands. "Be quick, bring packs." Those few words carried with them the urgency of the battle and the fate of Custer's men. Martini had done his part, but as he handed over the note, the real question became whether Benteen would act quickly enough to make a difference. As historians have since debated, the implications of the note were as significant as they were ambiguous. Did Custer simply want the packs brought forward, or was he calling for full reinforcement? And what did it mean for Benteen's priorities? Should he support Reno or join Custer? Regardless of interpretation, Martini's delivery of the note was critical. He had done what Kanipe had failed to do. He completed his mission with speed and determination, even in the face of danger. While Martini's swift and courageous ride is remembered as one of the battle's defining moments, Kanipe's story takes a far different turn. His slow pace and questionable motives left much to be desired, but Martini's mission was not the end of the messenger's saga. Before Giovanni Martini set out on his urgent mission, General George Custer stood atop a ridge, surveying the battlefield below. His command had moved swiftly through the rugged terrain, and from his vantage point at Cedar Coulee, Custer could see the valley where Major Reno's forces were already engaging the Native American warriors. The dust from Reno's advancing skirmish lines mingled with the smoke from the gunfire, yet despite the growing chaos below, Custer remained confident. In that moment, the weight of the decisions to come had not yet settled on Custer's shoulders. From his high position, he saw a battlefield that appeared manageable, with Native American forces moving, but not in overwhelming numbers. Some were retreating toward the pony herds to the west, while others stood their ground, skirmishing with Reno's advancing troops. To Custer, this was a moment of opportunity, not disaster. His military instinct told him that Reno was holding his own, and the Native American resistance, while organized, was not yet enough to overwhelm his forces. Custer had been in battle before, and to him, this scene did not yet suggest the dire situation that would unfold in the hours to come. He believed that with proper coordination and reinforcement, his 7th Cavalry could win the day. And in that moment of observation, Custer's experience and instincts informed his confidence. From the bluffs, he could see Reno's men moving with precision, their skirmish lines holding strong against the Native American warriors who were primarily on foot. It was a difficult fight, but nothing that Custer hadn't seen before. He trusted in his men's ability to carry the battle through sheer discipline and tactical advantage. This confidence was amplified by the fact that Custer had not yet fully realized the extent of the forces arrayed against him. While some of his scouts, including Mitch Boyer and the Crow Guides, had reported larger gatherings of Native American forces, the full scope of the village was still not visible from Custer's position. He had yet to see the thousands of Lakota, Cheyenne, and Arapaho warriors who were gathering across the river, preparing to envelop both his and Reno's commands. For now, from his vantage point, it appeared that Reno had the situation under control, and the remaining hostiles were in disarray, retreating or repositioning. With this perception of the battlefield, Custer's confidence only grew. The Native American forces he could see directly ahead of him were not mounted in overwhelming numbers, and those on the battlefield were giving way under Reno's pressure. Custer's previous successes in battle likely colored his interpretation of the scene. His reputation as an audacious and successful leader had been forged in the Civil War, where his aggressive tactics had earned him victory after victory. Now, that same boldness led him to believe that with a little more force, the battle would tilt in his favor. Custer's decision to send Martini with the message to Benteen was a calculated one, but it was not born of desperation. At this moment, he believed that with Reno pushing from the valley and Benteen bringing up reinforcements, the tide of battle would soon turn in his favor. The written note, "Benteen, come on, big village, be quick, bring packs," was simple and direct. It underscored Custer's sense of urgency, but not of panic. He was requesting reinforcements, but there was no indication in the note that he believed the battle was slipping out of control. Instead, it suggested that Custer was focused on consolidating his forces to deliver a decisive blow. Even the phrasing of the note reflected this confidence. The directive to come on, rather than support Reno or hurry to me, implied that Custer believed Benteen could arrive in time to reinforce the main effort, rather than salvage a deteriorating situation. The call to bring packs signified Custer's focus on logistical support, reinforcing the idea that he expected to press the fight, not retreat or regroup. To Custer, this was still a battle to be won. As Custer stood on the ridge with his adjutants, including Cook and DeRudio, there was no panic in his voice, no visible concern that the battle was on the verge of disaster. His demeanor reflected the same calm confidence that had defined his command throughout his career. Even as the dust and smoke from the battlefield rose higher, and more Native American forces were seen moving in the distance, Custer remained focused on the next steps. His decision to send Martini with the message to Benteen was not a reaction to imminent defeat, but a preparation for victory. He believed that with Benteen's reinforcements and the pack train, his forces would have the strength to overwhelm the remaining native warriors and take control of the battlefield. But what Custer could not see, what he could not know, was that the situation was far more dire than it appeared from his lofty position on the ridge. While he watched Reno's forces holding their line, more and more Native American warriors were crossing the river, positioning themselves for a massive counterattack. What Custer saw as a battle he could still win was, in reality, a rapidly deteriorating situation. His confidence, though based on the information available to him at the time, would soon prove to be tragically misplaced. As Custer issued his final orders and prepared to move his command into Cedar Coulee, his focus was still on offense. He was not retreating or reconsidering his strategy. Instead, he was preparing for the final push that he believed would secure victory. It was this confidence, misguided, as it would later prove, that defined Custer's actions in those crucial moments before Martini's dispatch. Little did he know that the battle unfolding below him would soon spiral out of control, and his fate, along with the fate of his men, was sealed long before the reinforcements he so confidently requested could arrive. While Custer's confidence remained unshaken in the moments leading up to Martini's dispatch, the same could not be said for Kanipe's journey. His slow progress and ambiguous actions during the battle would continue to raise doubts about his true intentions. While Martini's determined ride forged a story of heroism, Sergeant Daniel Kanipe's journey became clouded with doubt. His slow pace, inconsistent explanations, and failure to deliver his message cast a shadow over his actions. Unlike Martini, whose mission was clearly fulfilled, Kanipe's ride would be questioned by historians and fellow soldiers alike. According to Kanipe, his mission was simple. He was dispatched by Tom Custer at approximately 1:47 p.m. to hasten the arrival of the pack train. This task, critical to ensuring that the advancing troops had the supplies they needed, should have been relatively straightforward. Yet, Kanipe's failure to communicate this order in a timely manner remains one of the great mysteries of the Battle of Little Bighorn. At first glance, Kanipe's claim seems reasonable. The advancing troops were moving quickly, and there was a clear need for the pack train to keep pace. But his subsequent actions left much to be desired. Despite leaving the front lines early in the battle, Kanipe did not deliver his message to Captain McDougal or Lieutenant Matthey, who commanded the rear and the pack train. In fact, neither man recalled receiving any message from Kanipe that day. When Kanipe reappeared on Reno Hill, it was without the urgency or clarity one would expect from someone tasked with such an important mission. He blended back into the chaos without conveying the orders he had supposedly been entrusted with. This strange behavior raised the first round of questions. Why had Kanipe taken so long to complete his mission? Why had he failed to deliver the message? And why did his actions seem so out of sync with the pace of the battle? The timeline of Kanipe's journey only deepened the mystery. If Kanipe had indeed left around 1:47 p.m., he should have reached the pack train by 2:39 p.m. at the latest. Even at a slow pace, the ride should not have taken much more than an hour. But the evidence suggests that Kanipe took significantly longer, moving at a speed that was far below what was expected of a cavalryman on such an urgent mission. Adding to the confusion was Kanipe's delayed revelation about who had given him the order to return. Initially, he did not mention Tom Custer's name when he arrived on Reno Hill. It wasn't until much later, after the battle's conclusion, and the deaths of the Custer brothers were confirmed, that Kanipe claimed Tom had been the one to send him back. This convenient posthumous attribution only fueled suspicions. Why had Kanipe waited to mention Tom Custer's involvement? Was he trying to protect himself from criticism? Moreover, Kanipe's actions stand in stark contrast to those of the other messengers, particularly Martini. While Martini braved enemy fire, a wounded horse, and a race against time to deliver his message, Kanipe seemed to take his time. His failure to fulfill his mission became even more troubling when compared to the speed and determination shown by Martini, Voss, and Shero, all of whom faced similar dangers. Was Kanipe merely a soldier who fell behind, or did he intentionally delay his return to avoid the dangers of the battlefield? This question has haunted historians and battle scholars for years. Some believe Kanipe saw an opportunity to avoid the escalating conflict and took it, staying safe at the rear instead of returning to the fray. Others argue that Kanipe simply didn't grasp the urgency of his mission, although this explanation seems unlikely given his military experience. Ultimately, Kanipe's slow pace, failure to deliver the message, and the vague circumstances surrounding his orders leave his actions open to interpretation. Unlike Martini, whose bravery under fire is well documented, Kanipe's role in the battle remains shrouded in uncertainty. His choices and the doubts they raised continue to cast a shadow over his legacy. While doubts about Kanipe's intentions persist, the actions of the messengers at Little Bighorn undeniably shaped the battle's outcome. The role of the messengers during the Battle of Little Bighorn remains one of the most debated aspects of the infamous conflict. Their actions, or in some cases, inactions, carried with them the weight of consequence, influencing not just the course of the battle, but the very legacy of Custer's last stand. From the determined ride of trumpeter Giovanni Martini to the more questionable actions of Sergeant Daniel Kanipe, the fate of Custer's command was, in part, shaped by these messengers' ability to carry out their orders in the chaos of battle. Martini's ride to deliver Adjutant Cook's note to Captain Benteen stands out as a moment of courage and perseverance. Despite the danger that surrounded him and the injury to his horse, Martini did not waver. His mission was clear: get the message to Benteen and urge him to move quickly. Martini's ability to fulfill his orders with speed and determination, even under fire, demonstrated the crucial role that communication plays in battle. His journey through hostile territory, pushing forward despite the odds, reflects the very essence of military duty. But despite Martini's success, the message he delivered could not prevent the disaster that would unfold for Custer's command. Benteen, though urged to move quickly, did not immediately rush to Custer's side. The reasons behind Benteen's delay have been discussed extensively by historians, with some suggesting that he misunderstood the urgency of the note, while others argue that Benteen was more cautious than Custer, unwilling to charge headlong into a situation he did not fully understand. Regardless of the reasons, by the time Benteen arrived, it was too late to save Custer and the men who had ridden with him into the heart of the battle. While Martini's actions were marked by urgency and bravery, Kanipe's ride offers a stark contrast. As discussed earlier, Kanipe's failure to deliver his message in a timely manner and the subsequent doubts surrounding his intent cast a shadow over his role in the battle. Whether Kanipe simply fell behind or deliberately delayed his return, his actions had significant consequences. The pack train, which Kanipe was sent to expedite, arrived much later than it could have, and the supplies that might have helped Custer's men never made it to the front in time. This delay, whether intentional or not, became a crucial factor in the unfolding disaster. The contrast between Martini and Kanipe's actions highlights the profound impact that even small decisions can have in the heat of battle. In the fog of war, every moment counts, and the difference between life and death can hinge on something as simple as how fast a messenger rides how clearly an order is understood or how urgently a command is carried out. Both men were given critical tasks, but while one rose to the challenge, the other faltered. The consequences of these actions reverberated across the battlefield, altering the outcome in ways neither man could have foreseen. Yet, it is important to note that the messengers were not the only ones responsible for the fate of Custer's command. Custer's own decisions, particularly his underestimation of the size and strength of the Native American forces, played a significant role in the defeat. His confidence, as seen when he dispatched Martini with the note, suggested a leader who believed the battle could still be won with proper coordination. However, Custer's failure to recognize the full scope of the threat, combined with the delay in receiving reinforcements and supplies, sealed the fate of his command. Still, the actions of the messengers serve as a microcosm of the broader challenges faced during the battle. Communication in warfare is always fraught with difficulty, especially in a conflict as chaotic and unpredictable as the Battle of Little Bighorn. Orders can be misinterpreted, messengers can be delayed or lost, and crucial information can fail to reach its destination in time. In this case, the failure of communication, whether through delays, misunderstandings, or inaction, played a central role in the outcome. Looking back, the contrasting fates of Martini and Kanipe underscore the importance of duty, speed, and reliability in battle. Martini's ride, though ultimately unable to prevent the loss of Custer's command, remains a symbol of courage and determination in the face of overwhelming odds. Kanipe, on the other hand, serves as a reminder that hesitation and uncertainty can have devastating consequences, especially in moments of critical importance. In the end, the Battle of Little Bighorn is remembered not just for the heroism and tragedy that unfolded, but for the lessons it teaches about the complexities of war. The messengers, both those who succeeded and those who failed, were part of a larger web of decisions and actions that led to the infamous defeat. Their roles, though often overshadowed by the more dramatic elements of the battle, remain a crucial part of the story, highlighting the fragile nature of communication in war and the profound impact it can have on the outcome. The actions of the messengers during the Battle of Little Bighorn, particularly Martini and Kanipe, demonstrate how small moments can have monumental consequences. Whether through bravery or hesitation, these messengers shaped the battle in ways that are still debated today. Though the outcome may not have changed, their stories serve as a reminder of the vital role that communication and duty play in times of war, where every decision counts, and every delay can mean the difference between survival and defeat. As the dust settled on the Battle of Little Bighorn, and historians pieced together the events of that fateful day, the roles of trumpeter Giovanni Martini and Sergeant Daniel Kanipe stood in sharp contrast. Their journeys, though both set in motion by orders to deliver crucial messages, diverged in significant ways, where one emerged with a sense of triumph. The other's legacy was marked by hesitation and doubt. These final moments offer a fitting close to the broader story of the messengers, who shaped one of America's most infamous military defeats. Martini's ride remains one of the enduring stories of bravery and resolve from the battle. Despite the danger that surrounded him, native warriors closing in on his trail, his horse injured and slowing, Martini did not waver from his mission. His focus, even in the face of gunfire, was unwavering. The note he carried from Adjutant Cook to Captain Benteen became one of the most famous written orders of the battle. "Benteen, come on, big village, be quick, bring packs." Martini's successful delivery of this message, though ultimately unable to alter the final outcome of the battle, stands as a testament to his commitment to duty. For many, he symbolizes the type of soldier who, despite overwhelming odds, carries on with his mission. His legacy is one of courage under fire, and his name is often spoken with reverence in the retellings of Custer's last stand. However, as historians have debated over the years, there remains the lingering question of whether Martini's mission could have made a difference had Benteen moved more quickly. Could reinforcements have reached Custer in time? Or was the battle already lost by the time Martini handed over the note? These questions remain unanswered, but what is certain is that Martini did his part, and did so with the kind of fortitude that defines a soldier in battle. On the other hand, Daniel Kanipe's story does not share the same clarity. His journey, marred by delays and a lack of urgency, has cast a long shadow over his role in the battle. Kanipe's failure to deliver his message to expedite the pack train raises uncomfortable questions. Was he simply unlucky, caught up in the confusion of the battlefield, or did he deliberately drag his feet to avoid rejoining the front lines? What makes Kanipe's case more troubling is the timeline. While Martini covered a similar distance and faced similar dangers, Kanipe's progress was inexplicably slower. By the time he eventually returned to Reno Hill, the battle had shifted dramatically. His mission to hasten the pack train, a critical part of Custer's strategy, was unfulfilled. The supplies that could have been brought forward to support Custer's men were delayed, and Kanipe's failure to communicate effectively may have contributed to the chaos that ultimately enveloped the 7th Cavalry. The most damning aspect of Kanipe's story is his post-battle claim that Tom Custer had sent him back with the message. This assertion, which he did not reveal until after Tom Custer was confirmed among the dead, seemed convenient. Without Tom alive to confirm or deny Kanipe's story, doubts about his motivations festered. It is this aspect of Kanipe's legacy that has been most scrutinized, whether he was a victim of circumstance or whether he sought to protect himself by retreating from the battle. In contrast to Martini's clear-cut determination, Kanipe's journey is mired in ambiguity. His slow pace, failure to deliver the message, and questionable explanations stand in stark contrast to the expectations of a cavalryman charged with a vital task. While Martini's story resonates as one of heroism, Kanipe's remains an example of the uncertainties that often accompany war, the moments where duty and fear collide, and where individual actions, whether through intent or accident, shape the course of history. As the Battle of Little Bighorn fades further into the annals of history, the legacy of these two messengers continues to reflect broader truths about the nature of warfare. For Martini, his ride stands as a beacon of what soldiers can achieve when they push forward despite the odds. For Kanipe, his actions serve as a reminder of how hesitation, whether deliberate or not, can have lasting consequences. Together, their stories form a complete picture of the human experience in battle, of bravery and doubt, of triumph and failure. In the final analysis, both Martini and Kanipe left indelible marks on the Battle of Little Bighorn, but for very different reasons. Where one became a symbol of perseverance, the other became a figure whose actions would forever be questioned. These final moments of their journeys capture the complex, poor, often contradictory nature of war itself, where not every decision is clear and not every outcome is certain. The story of these two messengers is more than just a tale of orders delivered or missed. It's a reflection of how, in the chaos of war, the actions of individuals can ripple outward, influencing the lives of many, and shaping the course of history in ways that are still debated today. Martini and Kanipe, through their differing fates, offer a window into the profound and unpredictable nature of battle.